we're going to try to share with you some update with regard to the Lebanon Municipal Airport and our ongoing work at the airport with regard to environmental assessment, other matters that involve the airport. And we thought it would be timely to come back to you because we're still trying to seek input from you and the public. We're also trying to share information, so the input you provide back to us is in a base of the information that applies to the airport. And in this occasion, the airport has direct impact on all of us, and it has indirect impact on all of us. And it's a fairly complicated matter in many ways, but in other ways, it's I've always said that how's the community feel about its airport? I know in all previous communities there was a great deal of love for the airports in those communities as very important features of their community. So we're trying to get your feedback on these matters. As this goes, many things have been said, and we also want to provide some clarity as to the facts with regard to the matters involved. And so with me today I have our airport manager, Dyment. And I'm so pleased to have him here. He's got a lot of information to share today. We might as well launch into it. I guess people were concerned about if we have to do this changes at the airport runway as a result of our EA environmental assessments that's taken place. The impact on the natural environment. There's actually been statements that we're going to be laying waste to like 40 acres of land. And that's disturbing for most people if it's taken in a context of just those statements. Could you reflect on what's going to happen physically in the event we move forward with some of the recommendations that are being made with the EA?
Yes. First off, the whole purpose of the project through a master plan started in '06 and continuing with an environmental assessment is for safety. If this project was to go forward, would have a safety improvement, wouldn't be able to accommodate any more activity or anything. It's basically safety. The basics are the east-west runway that runs generally parallel to 89 would get shortened by 500 feet, 250 feet on each end. And then the safety area there, if this is the runway, a safety area should continue out 300 or 1,000 feet off the end, and there they would have 300-foot safety areas off the ends. And then the north-south runway, the run that's perpendicular to the runway, generally points towards Penny's, that would get shifted to the south 700 feet and then extended 1,000 feet beyond that. And the reason is the east-west runway is the longest runway now. That would shift so that the north-south runway would be the longest runway. At the end of the day, we still have 5,500 feet usable in both directions off the longest runway. So that's the goal, is to maintain the usability of the airport.
And safety is important because safety provides a certain amount of risk management for our people that fly into airport, our pilots and their passengers. Mm-hmm. Also for those who really are underneath in possible mishaps and crashes from airports as well. Mm-hmm. We're trying. All it is making a safe runway.
Yes,
and that's what this is all about. There was some statements that these are new federal regulations that are being brought to bear, and that's something new that's causing us to do this. I mean, new regulations. Are these new regulations that have come into just brand new ones?
No, they're actually the regulation or the criteria for the runway safety area, the areas off the ends of the runway, have been in place since about the early 80s, 1983 or so. And that exact same criteria of 1,000 feet off either end to allow the plane, if it runs off the runway long or lands short, to have a smooth place to get back up to the runway. Those have been in place since '83. And due to some accidents over the years, there was a real strong focus of FAA to improve these safety areas, especially at airports that were certificated under Part 139, which Lebanon used to be. And that's why we're doing the environmental assessment. We're not certified Part 139 anymore, but the requirement to do the safety area is exactly the same.
And so when we look at it, basically we're taking our existing runway, we're doing the necessary extensions for the safety of the flying public, and that this intent is that we're looking closely at the environmental impact, and in terms of the impact, we also have to do actions to try to mitigate any environmental impact we have. Is that correct?
Yes, there will be about 10 acres of wetland impact that would have to be mitigated before we start our work. So once we complete the environmental assessment, if the project goes forward, the very next step is to do permitting and mitigation. And the mitigation that we're probably looking at, yet to be locked down in the permitting, is probably a payment into an aquatic resources management fund, a fund that people can use for conservation projects. And the estimated value that we would be putting into this fund is in the order of 1.5 million approximately.
So a fairly substantial amount of money,
Yes.
over 1.5 million is an estimate, to be put in for the benefit of conservation and environment. And so that's part of balancing when we have to do infrastructure under the federal rules that apply to us. There's been some conversation about allowing larger planes, and what we're doing here is allowing larger planes to come onto the airport. So that would imply that if we didn't do what we're doing, these larger planes aren't coming, and then once we do it, larger planes will come. What's the facts with regard to that?
Right now, the airport, part of the airport's job is it's a multifaceted job. It's supposed to accommodate the jets that come here to service, that meet the hospital, the college, the businesses in and around Lebanon and the Upper Valley, provides emergency medical services, brings people in from all over the world to the Upper Valley. That's we have to still do that. And with the project, we basically have an airport whose longest runway is 5,500 feet. It'd be exactly the same in the future, except that longest runway would be in a north-south direction rather than an east-west. Departing to the south the runway length would be 6,200 feet. But other than that, it's generally 5,500 feet. So what we have now is what we're going to have in the future, except in a north-south direction.
And sometimes there's been noise factors that have been mentioned by persons from the public. If what we're doing is this going to aggravate people's perceptions of noise impact on them, or how's that going to? What's some judgments about the noise, and by doing what we're doing to following the recommendations of the EA?
Okay. There was a detailed noise Part 150 study, it's called, that was done in 1985, and one of the commenters quoted from that. And what that study identified is the noise-sensitive areas are north and west Leb and east towards the city of Lebanon. So to try to orient the flights away from that direction. And what this project will, in effect, do, it will, from the east-west direction, get people more departing in a north to south direction into less noise-sensitive areas. What it will also do, because the runway is right here and now it's being shifted away from the north, is aircraft departing to the north will actually start their run 1,000 feet farther away from that area. Therefore, they'll be that much higher and generate that much noise by the time they get over those areas in West Lebanon.
Another question that's been asked is about why invest in the airport? Whether you're investing with federal money, state money, or local money, why invest in the airport? And this project itself is contemplated, I think 90% of the cost of the project is picked up by the federal government?
Yes.
And then there's a percent being picked up by the state government? What
Yes.
percent is that?
State would be will be 5%, and the city will be 5%.
So we pick up 5%, but then the argument says, well, we don't want the federal government to spend their tax money for this airport. So what's the case for why should we invest in the airport?
Two answers, I guess. One, at the federal level, if we don't spend it, somebody else will. And the reason I say that is the money is set aside or apportioned every year on what's going to be spent, and there's always more need for projects than we have money. This certain amount of money is set aside by Congress each year, and if we don't spend it, somebody else will, meaning some other airport will. We obviously don't want to spend money just to spend money, but this, in my sense, makes perfect sense because it's a safety project. It's something that's been on the design criteria since the early 80s. And so it's a good use of, I think it's a good use of federal funds. It's a safety project. On the local side, we the city pay 5%. The 5% share in more recent times has been paid for by our passenger facility charge generated at the airport. So in the end, the city's share for airport improvements is zero. And with a project where we're getting up in scale with this project here, there may be some kind of debt service, and I fully expect that the airport could pay most, if not all, of the debt service on that. So again, even a project like this, the city facilities are getting managed by 5 cents on the dollar, and that 5 cents is actually zero with the debt service that can probably be funded by the airport.
And as I've heard the conversations about the airport, there are economic spin-offs from the president of the airport that are, and I've heard that in the context of the jobs associated with the airport, of the economic value that's being created in the community as a result of the airport. Do you have any sense of the breadth of these additional, what I would say would be resource allocations to the community, to the benefit of the community?
A study done in '07, and I adjusted it slightly for the most recent downturn here, is we have 51 jobs on the airport. We have 34 jobs that are generated off the airport, the indirect jobs in New Hampshire, and 26 of those off-airport jobs in the Upper Valley. And that goes up and down year to year. So we're generating economic impact. We're generating revenue that gets paid into the general fund to support the city through our revenues that we generate. We're also generate property tax income, not a substantial amount that goes directly into the general fund as well. So the airport generates revenue from operations. It generates airport improvements funded 5 cents on the dollar for city improvements, and we generate property tax revenue.
Now, some say, and I've heard this, is, well, the fact of the matter is that the airport is simply going to be, we can close it. We can close the airport. That if this would save money because no federal money would be spent, no state money, we close the airport. Looking at the facts behind that comment, factually, is that reality, or how can we close the airport? Just because that's just very doable. We just close the airport.
We could if the FAA gave us permission, and I've asked the FAA numerous times, and the FAA is very strongly of the opinion that the airport is a national resource, a regional resource, a civil defense, and a military resource. And because of that importance, they would not accept the airport closing. If they were, there'd have to be some payment on the scale of $37 to $40 million just for the value of the airport, as the FAA's contributed over time. So the airport cannot be closed because the FAA would not let it be closed.
So I think as we come to our closure here, a few things that seems very clear is, one, the airport is never going to be closed. And that's a pretty broad statement, but it's a pretty strong statement, but it appears to be pretty much factually based. Because when we make these policy calls, we got to think about it factually based. And the second part is that we do want a safe airport. And the third one is bringing in a lot of value. I guess the one we didn't get to, and we'll in future shows we will, is the future of the airport. Because what we're saying to the public is, make your comments with regard to the airport known to us about these things, but take some moments and look at the long haul. Yes. Where should we go with the airport? I mean, other airports are some are municipal airports, some are regional airports, some are private-public partnerships. Some become the center for for economic campuses where there are more opportunity from various businesses to be involved. I notice you've been improving the revenues over the period of Hall. How are our employments doing?
Our employments, our goal is to get 10,000 employments per year, and when we do that, the federal money that we get, that the airport gets entitled to, specifically to Lebanon, would increase from 150,000 up to about $1 million. We can do a lot more with $1 million of federal money than we can 150,000. Last year we were, I believe, 9,500 or 9,600, and the airline and us are working together to get that number up and over at 10,000.
So, in conclusion today, I think this helps share some information. We're putting this information up on website. There's a lot of good information. Where would they go for the information on the web?
The flylab.com is the airport's website. In the lower left-hand corner, there's a URL that goes to all the parts of the environmental assessment that we're discussing. And in there, you'll see the email address for me to send me any comments you may have.
Well, thank you today, and appreciate it, Rick. Please, members of our community, think about getting involved and making a comment, and think long term. Think about the future of this area, and I guess we've got to think very broadly. It is a portal. The airport is our portal to the world, and there's lots of opportunities that have yet to be explored. But we only can explore them if you feel that we should do these things, move forward. So thank you again today. Please do let us know your response. Thanks. Welcome. Glad to have you here today on our Lebanon in Depth show. It's a great day here in Lebanon, as always. So in the summertime, it's just a beautiful place. And today, I'm happy to announce that I have a special guest for us, which is Colin Smith. And Colin Smith is the chair of our Pedestrian Bicycle Committee. I also have with us Andrew Gaspre, our Director of Planning and Zoning. And we're going to talk today because there's been some frequently asked questions lately about the striping, the new striping that's going around Colburn Park on the park streets. And the Pedestrian Bicycle Committee has been instrumental in examining that particularly challenging area of our downtown area. And we had this pilot project going, and I couch everything in terms of a pilot project. It's a chance to look at this in terms of striping. It's very low cost, and to have a pilot program that we can evaluate performance and see if it can tackle the safety that we think is so valuable. And that's, for us, it's valuable for the